Hello, welcome back to the Clara CFO Group channel. Today we're going to talk about employee retention tax credits. Yay! Yeah, because that's what everybody does when they hear employee retention tax credits, right? Okay, ERTC, also known as ERC. This is one of the big stimulus items that we are allowed to claim for small businesses. So we're going to talk through it today. We've already had a discussion on the channel about ERTC. We brought in a gal who does ERTC, actually does it with their practice, their accounting practice, Brittany Malador. You can go back and we will link the video above, hopefully right now, so you can go and catch up on that, because that gives a lot of context of what the retention credit is all about and sort of how it's claimed and things like that. But when we had that conversation earlier, some of the changes hadn't yet been made. So now we have an extended ERTC program that we can extend all the way through 2021. When we were talking with Brittany, we're only able to claim the credit for 2021 in Q1 and Q2. So this credit is now able to be claimed all throughout 2021 in each quarter. And so that really happened with the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. And now we're kind of going through, okay, what does this mean for small business owners? Okay, so what I wanted to do is try to give you guys an idea of whether or not you're going to be eligible for this credit. But I decided to team up with another fellow YouTuber and friend of mine, Jamie Troll. So we'll put her picture up here. You probably have seen her face if you've been watching my videos. YouTube is probably recommending her videos as well. So if you don't know her already, please go over and check out her channel. We will put it in the description box below so you can find it easily. But she's awesome. She's a CPA like myself. And she's been just trying to get all of this information out to small business owners as well. And she also has tons of wonderful resources for small businesses and specifically around helping you with your finances. So definitely check out Jamie. She is awesome. And she's created this awesome spreadsheet that we're going to go through today in this video. Okay, so she's put this all together from scratch, really just trying to think through exactly what you need to know to figure out whether or not you're eligible for these credits. Now, this spreadsheet that we're going to go through is wonderful. It's a wonderful resource, and we're going to put the link here, claracfo.com/ERTC. You can go and grab it for yourself if you want a copy, or you can just follow along and listen and learn as we walk through the eligibility criteria and sort of what you need to know in order to determine whether or not this is a credit that's right for you, okay? So with all of that, really what we're trying to do is this spreadsheet that I want to show you guys is a valuable tool to help you understand whether or not you should go and get some additional CPA help or somebody to help you actually go and claim these tax credits. Because with ERTC, there's been so much confusion about who is eligible, who's not eligible, that some people are just not even, they're going, hey, is this even worth it? But what you'll see as we go through this spreadsheet is that this is very much worth it if you are eligible. And just a little bit of effort on the front end could pay off in thousands, even millions, depending on the size of your business, in tax credits. So remember, tax credits are not something that you reduce the amount of taxes that you have to pay. Tax credits are reducing that, and then they will actually pay you back. It's actually just almost straight money back into your pocket. So these are tax credits. Again, go and check out our other video on the ERTC, but these are tax credits specifically applied to the employer portion of your payroll taxes. So what we're really talking about here is figuring out whether or not you can claim the credit, and if so, try to get an idea of about how much it might be. Okay, again, check out jamietroll.com. That is her website. You can also go check out her YouTube channel, Jamie Troll. Again, we will link it below, and please grab this calculator if it is helpful to you, okay, if you think you might be eligible. So when we get into this spreadsheet, what you're going to see is we're going to talk about ERTC 2020 and ERTC 2021 because there's eligibility requirements are different. And even the first half and second half of 2021, there's some slight differences. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get into the spreadsheet now because this is probably the best way to do it, is to give you guys a visual as we're walking through. All right, well, here we go. Okay, here is the handy dandy spreadsheet. So again, this is property of Jamie Troll, and you can find the download in the description box below, but you can also go to claracfo.com/ERTC. Okay, well, there is an instructions tab here, but basically I'm going to talk through this with you, so we don't need to read through that right now. Just to give you a kind of high level review, there is a way for you to plug in your gross receipts, because we'll talk about this being one of the big determinations of whether or not you're eligible. So there's a calculator here for you. And then there's a place for you to enter in qualified wages. But what I want to start with really are these eligibility decision trees. Jamie has put together some really good decision trees for us here, and it will help us figure out whether or not you're eligible for the 2020 ERTC, because those rules are different, and then eligibility for 2021 Q1 and Q2, and then eligibility for 2021 Q3 and Q4. Okay, so you're going to want to do these one at a time and just, talk things through, look at your information and see whether or not you qualify for each one, because just because you don't qualify for 2020 doesn't mean that you are disqualified for 2021, or just because you're disqualified, maybe you can't get Q1 and 2 of 2021 doesn't mean that you couldn't be eligible for 3 and 4. So look at each one of these tabs and think through this logically and see if you can qualify for these credits, okay? So we're going to start at the top here. If you are eligible for 2020 ERTC, the first thing we're going to ask were gross receipts for at least one quarter in 2020 less than 50% of the gross receipts for the same quarter in 2019? And then we're going to go yes or no. So I do want to just address right now, we're talking about a calendar quarter here. This is not, you don't get to choose your 3-month span. This is a calendar quarter. And if you did, then the qualified wages during the quarter are eligible for potential ERTC, okay? But then we basically need to put a size limitation on this. So did you have an average of full-time employees greater than 100? If you did not, so if you had a large drop of over 50% and you had less than 100 employees, then you can use the wages paid to employees to count the ERTC. And then you would go to this qualified wages tab, and then you would use these 2020 columns, B through K, okay? Now, the credit in 2020 is less than the credit in 2021. You can take for the whole year, you can take up to $5,000 per employee, and you have to pay them at least $10,000 in qualified wages in order to get that credit, okay? But that's across the whole year, max of $5,000 per employee. If you had over 100 employees, then it's asking if your employees were furloughed with pay. They were not working, but you still paid them. If that's the case, then those wages qualify for ERTC. But if you were over 100 employees and you were just paying employees normally, then you don't qualify in 2020 for ERTC, okay? Now, let's go to the other side of the decision tree. The other way that you can qualify for this credit is if you were fully or partially suspended during the quarter, okay? So we're going to look at this on a quarter by quarter basis. Were you shut down in Q1 of 2020? Were you shut down in Q2 of 2020? Were you shut down in Q3 of 2020? And so forth. So you would qualify for each quarter. You could look at that. And if you didn't have a gross receipts decline of 50% or more, and then were not fully or partially shut down, you are just not eligible for 2020 ERTC. But if you were partially shut down, then we have that same, over under 100 full-time employees. If you did have over 100 employees, then you can claim the wages that you paid to employees who were not working, but you paid them anyway. And then if you had less than 100 employees, then all of the wages paid during that time are qualified for ERTC, okay? So these decision trees are hugely helpful in trying to figure out yes or no on whether or not you qualify. Now, this is the same whether you're 2020 or 2021, is that you cannot claim the same wages that you use for PPP. So this is Let's say you got PPP in April of 2020 and you used it for April, May, and June wages, then essentially Q2 is off the table because Q2 starts April 1 and ends June 30th. That would be off the table from being able to claim an ERTC credit. Okay, so that is really super duper important. So make sure you do not use PPP wages and try to claim ERTC credits for the same wages. Okay, and we mentioned that here, or she mentions that here. If you go to any one of these quarters, it says exclude amounts paid with PPP. All right, so let's go to 2021 eligibility for Q1 and Q2. The first thing you want to ask yourself, and this is kind of a good thing, is because you have to prove less of a gross receipts decline. And gross receipts, remember, is your income coming into the business for services or products sold. This is not net income, like after all your business expenses. This is before business expenses. So we're gross receipts for Q1 and Q2, less than 80% of gross receipts for the same quarter in 2019. So we're actually going back 2 years from Q1 2021 to Q1 2019 to do a comparison. Or were the gross receipts for the immediately preceding quarter less than 80% of the gross receipts for the corresponding calendar quarter in the calendar year 2019. So if we're looking at Q1, we would actually look at Q4. Was Q4 2020 80% of 2019? Because you can qualify that way as well. So I wanted to point that out to you. There's 2 ways for you to qualify. And let's see here. So if you did not qualify from a gross receipts decline, then we're going to do the same thing. This is just like this first part is just like 2020. Was the business fully or partially suspended? If it was not, then you are just not eligible for the ERTC. Now, if you were partially or fully suspended, then we're going to ask, were average full-time employees in 2019 greater than 500? If they were greater than 500, then you're able to claim any wages of when you were shut down. Those wages can be qualified for ERTC. If you had less than 500, so it went up from 100. If you remember the last decision tree we were looking at, it went up from 100 to 500. So now, during that time, anything under 500, you can use all of the wages as qualified wages, as long as they're not, claimed under PPP. Remember that. So that's a really good benefit for making the 2021 a very attractive tax credit for a lot of small businesses. Okay, so let's go to this other side. So if you did have a gross receipts decline that qualifies up here, then we would ask the second question: were average 2019 full-time employees greater than 500? If they were, then were employees furloughed with pay? If they were not, then no wages are eligible for ERTC. If they were furloughed with pay, then only those wages that were paid while not working are eligible for ERTC. And then if there's less than 500 employees, then basically all wages paid to employees are eligible to be counted as wages, of course, excluding anything paid with PPP funds. All right. So this is a very attractive credit for so many small businesses. And the really great thing about ERTC 2021 is that we get $10,000 of qualified wages per quarter for employees. And then we get to take 70% of those wages as a credit. So if you pay an employee $12,000 in the quarter, you can take up to $10,000 of that and then get a credit of $7,000. So we're going to show you what those numbers look like in just a second, but that is huge, you guys. So much money on the table. 2021 ERTC eligibility. What we've got here is essentially this bottom part of the decision tree is the same, but we've got a couple new things over here. So if you did you start your business after February 15th, 2020? If you remember, most of these COVID relief bills, specifically in the CARES Act, most of them were really only applicable if your business was existing before all of this started, before February 15th, 2020. But in this new program, they've now said, hey, if you did start your business after, you're going to be eligible for this thing called Recovery Startup Business Credit. Essentially, they're allowing you to take the ERTC, but you would be quote unquote a recovery startup business. And if your receipts are under $1 million, so this is kind of your first year in business and you're under $1 million, you don't have to prove any decline in gross receipts. Obviously, you wouldn't have anything to compare it to. And then you can use the qualified wages tab in the spreadsheet to figure out what you can get, what you're eligible for based on the wages you paid to your employees. And you can get up to $50K per quarter. So that is huge. This is one of the few things that is available to small businesses that have opened after COVID started. All right. And then if you started before COVID, then basically have you experienced a decline of at least 90% in gross receipts in Q3 or Q4 2021 compared to the same quarter of 2019? So this would be extreme losses, okay? So you would qualify as a severely financially distressed employer. All wages in the qualifying quarters are considered qualifying wages. There's no cap. So even if you paid an employee $20,000 or $30,000, all of it is qualifying, and you would still calculate 70% of those qualified wages as a credit, okay? You can't obviously count PPP funds or what was paid for COVID and COVID sick and family leave, okay? But that is a big option. Now, there's not going to be too many of you who are going to qualify, since that 90% is a very high number, and a lot of businesses have recovered since then. But it's just something to look at. You might qualify for it. All right, and then if that is a no, then we go into everybody else. Okay, we're the gross receipts 80% for the same calendar quarter in 2019, and then you go back and look at that. And then you also have this option of qualifying if the preceding quarter was 80% of gross receipts. So, but what this basically means is that if you qualify in quarter, let's say you qualify in Q2 and your loss was, 27% over, maybe you had a 27% decline between Q2 2021 and Q2 2019. This means that your next quarter will automatically qualify because you qualified in that quarter. And then the next quarter, Q3, you can, even if you don't have a loss of 80% or 20%, you will automatically qualify for basically 2 quarters. Okay, so if you did have the gross receipts loss, then we go to the same decision tree. Did you have 500 employees or no? And then we walk through all of that. So all of this is basically the same thing with partially or fully suspended. All right. So I wanted to point that out to you, and now we can go over to qualified wages. So let's actually put some numbers in here and give you an example of what this looks like. Well, actually, let's go over to gross receipts first. So what I want to show you is this gross receipts tab, because this will give you some numbers to play by. Let's just say that in 2019, you basically made $100,000 each quarter. And then in 2020, you were looking good for the first quarter, but then after that, it started looking pretty rough. And you basically were struggling to kind of get your business back up to where it needed to be, okay? Or where it was previously. This would be a non-qualifying quarter, because remember in 2020, if we're qualifying for 2020 ERTC, we would need a 50% loss. So in Q3, we triggered that 50% loss, but then we also get the next quarter because we had a 20% decline. We haven't gotten back up to 80% of what our previous quarter in 2019 was. So these are both qualifying quarters, so we can take qualified wages. And this is what we're seeing for a lot of people. A lot of people got PPP in the first round, got it, used it in Q2, maybe even use it a little bit into Q3, but they're going to have qualifying wages in Q3 and Q4. So definitely check that out and see if it's going to be worth it for you. And then let's go over and see about 2021. So let's say 2021, you are you got 75,000 in Q4. Let's just say you were able to maintain 75,000 in Q1. That is great. So this basically is saying you will be qualified again for Q1 of 2021, and you are automatically qualified for Q2 as well. All right. Now let's just go ahead and say what happens if you got back up to 100,000. This is still a qualifying quarter, okay? Because your previous quarter was in that loss position of at least 20%. So that is good. Now, what happens if you get back up and you are increasing revenue over 2019? That's great. But let's say Q4 is a really hard quarter. You can qualify again, even after you had a quarter that you had a gain. You could still potentially not get one quarter and then get another quarter with a loss. So you need to do this on a quarter by quarter basis to see if you qualify. All right. So that is super helpful. This is nice because it just you can plug the numbers in super quickly. And then, you can get an idea of what you qualify for. Now, I want to make sure that we say this really explicitly. This spreadsheet is really meant to just help you figure out whether or not you could be eligible, but you're supposed to use this spreadsheet along with a professional who knows your full tax picture, okay? Do not try to do this on your own unless you are a professional and you understand these tax credits, okay? What we're trying to do is help illuminate these issues, and you can better understand as the business owner whether or not you need to escalate and actually hire somebody to help you with this, okay? So what we're trying to give you are the tools so you feel empowered to know what is the next step, all right? So that's what the spreadsheet is all about. Okay, and then so once you figure out which quarters you're eligible for, then you can go and find your qualified wages. So you actually get to include your compensation to your employees and any specific healthcare costs that you're paying for your employees. Let's see. Okay, so what you would do here is you would pull your employee reports. So you would pull your payroll journals, and then you would go through here and you would determine where, so by employee, you would say, okay, I qualified in Q3 and Q4. I had $10,000 of qualified wages for employee 1, and then $8,000 in Q4. This is all based on your employer reports. And then they would tell you how much you qualify for the credit. Your total maximum qualifying wages in 2020 is $10,000. So even though you paid $18,000 to this employee during the time, you have to cap it at $10,000, and then you get an estimated tax credit of 50%. And then you would go and do the same thing for 2021. So again, we're going to exclude anything that was paid with PPP, but we are going to type in, essentially the same numbers. But remember, in our example, we did not qualify in Q3, okay? So in this situation, I paid $10,000 each quarter. My total qualifying wages are $30,000, and then I get 70% of that. So I get $21,000 in estimated tax credits, okay? Now, even if this was $12,000, it still maxes out at that $30,000, okay? So then here's your little summary charts showing you total qualifying wages and total estimated tax credits. So you can go and pull this for your individual employees and fill this out one by one, and it will give you a very clear idea of what you might be eligible for. All right, well, I hope that this has been helpful. Again, grab your copy of the spreadsheet. It is amazing and super helpful, and I am actually using it to help clients figure out exactly how much they might be eligible for, and then we're using other professionals to actually file those 941 amendments for our clients. So, okay, grab your copy of the spreadsheet if you want it. It's super helpful and totally worth it. And make sure you check the description box below for that easy link, or you can go to claracfo.com/ERTC. All right, well, that was super helpful. I hope if it was helpful, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. That helps me out so much, and it also helps out the YouTube algorithm so that it will show this video to more people who might be eligible to take this credit. So please give a thumbs up if it was helpful, and make sure you're also subscribed because we've got more videos coming down the pike. All right, well, Jamie's spreadsheet, super helpful. Thanks to Jamie for letting me basically talk about this on my channel and share it with you guys. Again, go and follow her if this information is helpful. She is a wealth of knowledge. Please go and follow her because, she's brilliant. So, all right, you guys, well, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.